Ladies and gents, boys and girls, welcome to the Windup, SEC Unfiltered's bi-weekly college baseball show. Weekend number 3 in conference play is officially upon us. We've also got an electric midweek slate to discuss, break down, talk about. Once again, I am Chris Phillips. He is Harrison Fant. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. As always, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast, wherever you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. And as always, we're powered by our friends over at FANDUEL. Visit FANDUEL.com/SECU to join today and get started with $200 in bonus bets when you win your first $5 bet. Once again, that's FANDUEL.com/SECU to get $200. $100
Chris, come on now.
$100.
Not a day goes by that I wonder if Chris is going to have technical issues. Chinook Caesar knows it best. A tradition unlike any other. Here we go. Harrison late, Chris glitching. This account is consistent. This account is consistent, baby. I mean, if there's one thing in life you should be, it's consistent. But I mean, Chinook's the only one to talk. I'm just glad you're not late on opening day. That's for sure. But no, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that on opening day of baseball, he's still having of college baseball. He's still having technical issues.
Okay, so we're off to a really hot start here. Anyways, I'm back. It's opening day. All I wanted to say was, go Bravos.
Let's go, baby.
Happy
Shop
opening
on,
day.
baby.
Happy opening day, everyone.
Let's go.
Appreciate you all. I was just still going on there like nothing happened.
Yeah, I
apparently
this is ridiculous.
I think I was frozen for probably like 20 seconds. I have no idea. Either way, shout out our friends at FanDuel. We appreciate them. They're the official partners and sponsors of our show. Obviously, they're also powering the SEC Unfiltered Tour, which is taking us this weekend to Nashville, Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and Arkansas. Really excited to get out to the Hawk, hang out with all the great Doors, Razorbacks. Should be an electric weekend of baseball there. And again, we've got great series Thursday through Saturday and Friday through Sunday. But again, Harrison, thank you so much for taking the time. Again, technical difficulties get us going. It is what it is. Happy opening day. Chop on. Celebrate
baby.
accordingly. Hope your MLB team has a great season, but not as good as the Atlanta Braves. Harrison,
unless you're the Phillies or the Mets. I'm just going to say it. Someone had to say it.
Yeah. I hope your teams fall short in every way possible. Anyways,
Absolutely.
Harrison, what's going on? Appreciate it.
Not much. Excited for opening day. Opening day is a national holiday. It should be. And you should be able to leave work early if you're going to opening day.
That's fair. I like that.
You should.
I like that.
Is that realistic? Absolutely not. But a guy can dream, right?
That's a good call. I like that a lot. No, it's going to be an electric day of baseball. Obviously, an electric weekend of SEC baseball as well. And again, we'll try to get through today's show, the rest of today's show, without any major technical difficulties. Harrison, I'm going to throw this camera away because that's exactly what's causing this. I'm going to go back to the other camera. I had some issues with like the cord, needing a new cord. I've got one now. So I think we're going to go back to that because at least we will not have the entire feed just completely glitch on us. And yes, the jokes are coming in. I have dial-up internet, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. So either way, though, we are here. This is the Windup, the best college baseball show anywhere, despite the technical difficulties. We appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in, guys. If you're tuned in live, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, wherever you're at, we will get to your questions, your comments near the end of the show. So make sure you're firing those off. And once again, Harrison, let's get things going again. We'll start what happened in the midweek. Obviously, a lot of notable midweek results that took place on Tuesday night. We didn't have any Wednesday games. We jam-packed it all into Tuesday. Midweeks do matter. And the dramatics were, I mean, they were all over the place, man. They were as prevalent as ever. I think we got to start, Harrison, what happened in Jacksonville. The Florida Gators continue to scuffle. They're up 4-3 going to the top of the 9th inning. You've got your guy, Philpott, in there. I think he goes hit by pitch, walk, hit by pitch, fielder's choice. It scores a run to tie the game, so you give up the lead. And then, of course, the grand slam that completed the cycle just to add insult to injury, and Florida loses that game to their arch rival, Florida State. In Jacksonville, I mean, you also had Arkansas, which inexplicably losing a slugfest to Missouri State, 14-13. You had Bama with a walk-off against North Alabama, North Carolina beating South Carolina, LSU run ruling Louisiana. That's notable because those two teams hate each other, and LSU gets the better down there on the Bayou. Your thoughts, Haberson, on, again, what was a very entertaining midweek slate, no doubt.
Chris, midweeks matter. They are continuing to matter. We think it matter. So that's why we talk about it. And that's why we're starting the show with it. Because, I mean, I don't think you can have a more dramatic finish to a game, to a regular season game, let alone a midweek game, than one of the greatest rivalries in college baseball in Florida State in Florida, which I don't understand why they still play, a 3-game midweek slate. Whole other discussion that needs to be a weekend series, right? But to fumble in the 9th inning as it happened, right? You take the lead in the top of the 9th, you go up 1, and then just an implodement of a bottom of the 9th. Walk, hit by pitch, walk, fielder's choice, or infield single that scores a run. And then to cap it off, not only do you beat your rival, not only do you walk off your rival at home, but you do it via a grand slam, and the grand slam completes the cycle.
Backside, too.
Backside grand slam, I was just about to say. Yeah. To complete the cycle, I mean, that's dagger in the chest, step on it, reach down, grab it, twist it, and turn it. I mean, absolutely brutal if you're a Florida fan. And Florida State could not be licking the chops anymore for that one. I mean, unbelievably dramatic game that I think stole the spotlight of the midweek slate because of just the fashion that I just explained. It was insane. And I mean, what do you do if you're Florida? And then Florida State, I mean, talk about getting some revenge after losing last time when they played early in the season. I mean, it was just, there's a lot of takeaways from that. And I mean, that was the biggest one for me. It was just Lodi's backside, complete the cycle of grand slam. Just unbelievable, Chris.
Yeah, I mean, kind of what you'd expect from a rivalry game, right? The dramatics.
Absolutely.
And I tell you this, it'll make Game 3. I know we'd rather have it a weekend series, but it'll make Game 3 there in Gainesville very interesting because you go in 1-1 split coming off that game. I don't know exactly when they play, if that's next week or 2 weeks from now. I would assume it's pretty soon. But that's going to make that game really, really dramatic, really interesting. And I will say
on Tuesday in Gainesville.
When is it?
April 8th, Tuesday.
Okay. I think we got 2 weeks then. 2
on
weeks
ESPN too.
Very nice. Yeah. And hey, perfect. Again, it's for the season bragging rights for bragging rights for the year.
Maybe you might, maybe we get a better than a high home camp.
Maybe. Yeah. That was pretty brutal. Yeah. That goes against all things we talk about. Midweeks matter. That goes against all that because.
Well, then you show the replay at the end, with the credits, and it's just like basically a side shot of his. I'm like, where was this?
Yeah,
where was this?
Midweeks matter more than just having a
Florida
high
State
home
versus
camp.
Florida, two of the most historic programs in college baseball. I'm not going to say top, but like they're on that list of historic programs, big names, household names in college baseball, and we can't get more than a high home camp.
One of the best rivalries in college baseball, no doubt.
I mean, I get technical difficulties and whatnot, but dang, that sucked for that game especially.
Yeah, so, we need better. We deserve better.
Yeah, and then obviously, Arkansas, no business being in that game. No business.
Weird.
I mean, the offense, it does exactly what they've been doing all year. I mean, you can't blame them. And, you have a grand slam in that game by Gabe Frazier. I mean, they had a season-high 16 hits and 5 doubles. But, I mean, you gave up, a 5-run deficit in the 9th. I mean, no business. Absolutely no business. I just don't know how else to put it other than that. And it's of a guy that you wouldn't expect. It's Will McIntyre. One of the guys who feels like a 7th-year COVID guy, with 3 hits, 3 runs. I mean, just 2 walks. I mean, it was just shout out to, props to Missouri State for fighting and battling back and, finding a will away and even to claw back into the game, let alone tie it and go to extras and then win it. I mean, talk about some juice. I mean, Arkansas, I think, is going to have some juice now after losing that game. I really do. I mean, similar to how Tennessee lost to ETSU, I think Arkansas has some juice going into the rest of SEC play. Maybe it was just a stumble up that they needed. Like, not that they wanted.
Little gut check. I mean, dude, Missouri State scored 5 runs in the top of the 9th inning.
Yeah, perfect way to put it. A little gut check.
Yeah, just scored 6 runs total in the 9th and the 10th to win that game.
And Arkansas was running away with that game too. They scored 5 in the 4th, 3 in the 5th, 4 in the 6th.
Yeah, so I mean, you're going to the top of the 9th at 13-8. I don't think you had any thought even crossing your mind that game's going to go to extras, but sure enough, it does. Things do get squirrely in the midweek. Harrison, how dare I, by the way, glance over this result? Missouri has bragging rights over Illinois. They beat the Illini on the road 11-9. So maybe Mizzou. I will say this. And talking to some LSU folks after they played them, I will say this about MIZ. They swing it a little bit better than I thought they would. Like, maybe the offense is going to lead them into stealing a few games this season. Their pitching's terrible, but I mean, we saw them against Ole Miss last weekend too. Yeah. They swung it well against Ole Miss.
Like they were in almost every game.
Yeah, maybe Mizzou. Who knows?
They touched up Riley Maddox. They touched up Mason Nichols.
Yeah. And now we're going to talk about it here in a second. But Texas got to go to Como. Don't sleepwalk through that weekend now. Don't sleepwalk. Just saying. Mizzou catching a little fire. We got to give credit to the Missouri Tigers. Big win, bragging rights win for them. Yeah, bragging. SEC over Big Ten. No matter the sport.
Speaking of that, we did get a handful of it from our friend Micah. It just means less ACC.
Yeah. It did not help. Florida State. Obviously, FSU gets the upper hand. North Carolina beat South Carolina, which I think was expected. That game did get close late, though, Harrison. I think that game was 8-8 late. One too. Yeah, that game was 8-8 late, and South Carolina's, as expected, I would say, pitching staff just kind of falls apart late. I mean, dude, again, we'll talk more about it when we get into the weekend, but they just don't have the arms, man. They don't even have the arms to compete, I think, on the weekends. Like, their top arms aren't great. So when you start getting into the midweek arms, I mean, your lack of depth.
Because of, you lose your Sunday starter too. But
yeah, and I mean, dude, they give up. I mean, here we go. They give up 5 runs in the top of the 8th inning. And give credit to North Carolina, very good team, Omaha caliber team. Again, this was not a game. As much as I love to give Micah and others and give the ACC hell, this was not a game where I ever expected South Carolina to win. So I'm not surprised, but losing it in brutal fashion. Your pitching staff just falling apart late. So. Yeah. And then we've got a Justin LeBron walk-off, by the way. Justin LeBron, just stay hot, kid.
Does it surprise you anymore?
No, not at all.
Just like the talent that he is and what he's able to do with, the ball with the bat in his hand and the ball with the glove in his hand.
Yeah.
I mean, uber talented. He would be a top 10 pick, I think, in this year's draft. I mean, I definitely think it's a conversation, but I mean, it's great for him that he's at 2026.
Yeah.
I mean, it's great for college baseball, get some extra year, and why not?
Yeah. Harrison, before we get off the midweek, because we got a jam-packed weekend slate I want to get into, I thought it was interesting, too. I don't know if you saw these comments by Tony Vitello. He brought up the fact, so they played Queens in the midweek, beat them 14-3, but Vitello's comments after the game essentially saying, giving credit to Queens for being willing to not have a run rule in effect and playing a full game. And he actually went as far as to say, Harrison, that is going to factor into our scheduling for midweek games when we're scheduling in the future who's willing to play a full 9 and who only wants to go run rule. Because I think he said effectively they've lost what's a grand total of 2 complete games. They've lost so many innings because they have been run ruling people. He said, hey, if you're willing to play a full 9, we're going to be a lot more likely to schedule you than if you're not. I thought those comments were interesting from Tony V. He obviously hates the run rule, which, I get it, because if the midweek is there to build depth and you are losing, again, you lose 2 innings here, 2 innings there, 2 innings there, after a while, again, you've lost a game or 2. And it's, you lose valuable innings for young guys to get in, pitchers to get in. Your thoughts on it. I don't know that the midweek, I don't know that the mid-major that's getting their brains beat in probably cares about what Tony V thinks about a run rule or not, but I thought those comments were interesting.
No, I think they are, but I think also I agree with them. I mean, because it's basically what you just said. Tennessee's missing opportunities to get guys that are SEC caliber players that are not starting because of how much of the luxury of riches that Tennessee Volunteers have on the baseball field right now. Not getting opportunities that he and I would agree, deserve and have earned the right to get ABs late in the game in a situation like that, where that's what the midweeks are for. Getting guys reps, getting, mid-major teams, helping boost their RPI and things like that, playing against big dogs. And, missing getting guys on the bench reps and guys on the mound that, maybe only throw 8, 10, 15 innings, more so on the lighter side, giving them opportunities to prove themselves. And, I honestly agree with him. I agree. I don't have any problems or any doubts or blame with him wanting to approach scheduling midweeks that way, because if you're paying the school to come play, you're paying them for 9. Unless you got it in contract, if it's a run rule, it's a percentage, whatever. But I mean, calling Georgia Tech games, when I called the Marshall series, it's a 4-game series. Georgia Tech Marshall played a 4-game series, including a game on Monday, because they're coming down, they're driving down from West Virginia, where Marshall is. I'm 99% sure. And I mean, the coaches, they had some, somewhat of a relationship too. And it's like, hey, like, we're driving down, like, you might as well, you mind if we play, a fourth, since we're down here, it works for us. And Danny Hall goes, yeah, she's like, not a problem. It works for us, in the schedule and everything. And I think they only had maybe a Wednesday midweek that game Tech did, but you get more guys opportunities, especially for Marshall's side. You get to play in good weather, better weather than, back up in North. And it worked for both, coaches. And I think 2 of the 4 games did have a run rule. I will say that. But just the way it's kind of approached is interesting. But I get it. I mean, if you're playing a 4-game series, sure, one of the games can be a run rule, right? And I remember because I was in the booth for game 2, and we got a note from our ICD that said, hey, like, no run rule in effect this game. So it was like interesting how it's done, but I don't blame Tony Vitello at all. I really don't.
Yeah, I don't blame him either. I think, again, to your point, baseball is meant to be played 9 innings. I mean, it's, I think that you
don't have run rules in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I mean, listen, people, there's some out there, and shame on them in the media, or especially the media. Shame on you for complaining about this. But fans as well. I mean, people complain like how long these games can get. Oh, it's a 3.5 hour minute. And I get it to a degree. But at the same time, if it's too long for you, then don't watch. These coaches are using it to evaluate, to get different guys out there, put them in certain situations that you can't simulate it in practice. You can do everything you can, but it's not like being under the lights at Lindsey Nelson or under the lights at the box. And like, to you, it's just nickels, or to you, it's just queens. But to guys who haven't played, as well as I do, Harrison, like, we've been there. To guys who haven't played, it's like playing in the World Series to them. This is your first opportunity to prove yourself on the field of play in an actual game. So taking that away from those guys, yeah, I agree. Let's just play the full 9.
Yeah, I mean, I'll even give you an example. I mean, William Schmidt, LSU.
Yeah.
He played the midweek and started pitching the midweek, and then, he got his opportunities, made the most of them. And, Jay Johnson said, yeah, you won't see him in the midweeks anymore.
Yeah.
That's like moving. It's moving up. It's an opportunity to do so and get those reps in.
And you need that because, it's not a long season. Maybe contrary to some belief, like 60 games is like gone like that. It's not like MLB 162. You can figure things out. You need those midweeks, so you're not having to thrust dudes into SEC play and say, hey, we just got to figure out what we got on the fly. That being said, Henderson, let's dive into the weekend slate. Again, the midweek was electric. Really excited to talk about this weekend slate. Before we do, guys, I want to tell you about our friends once again over at FanDuel, because this bracket season, FanDuel is letting you make the call, because right now new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. That's 200 extra bucks to bet on everything from clutch shots to last-second heartbreaks, and even who's cutting down the net. So if you've been waiting to join, there's no better time. There's tourney action almost every day, and FanDuel has amazing bet types like spreads, totals, game props, and so much more. And once again, myself, Dave Shoemate, who's our lead basketball analyst, will be locking in picks each and every single night. Tail us, fade us, who knows? Maybe we're due for a hot streak. We're due to win a few of these, so be careful in what you do. Either way, when you do it, just visit FanDuel.com/SECU and get in on the college hoops action all tourney long. Must be 21 and up in present select states or 18 and up in present in D.C. First online real money wager only. $5 first deposit required. Bonus issued as non-withdrawable bonus bets expire 7 days after receipt. Restrictions apply. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. FanDuel is offering online sports wagering in Kansas under an agreement with Kansas Star Casino LLC. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit FanDuel.com/RG. Call 1-888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut or visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Hope is here. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org or call 800-327-5050 for 24/7 support in Massachusetts or call 1-8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY in New York. Harrison, let's get into it. Conference weekend number 3 is officially upon us. We're going to preview, predict, and break down each and every single one of these series. And Harrison, I'm calling this the sneaky slate. Sneaky good slate this weekend. It's not, we don't have some of the headliners like we had the first 2 weekends where it's like, man, LSU, Texas, that is just like the obvious huge series, or even like a Tennessee, Bama. But we got a lot of really good series. And to be this early in conference play, just the third weekend, I feel like there's a lot of series here with a lot of implications, even though it's only the third weekend. So again, doesn't have those headliners. Sneaky good slate, though. And I think this is the kind of slate, Harrison, where a lot of times we see this across all sports, baseball included, the most madness takes place. So I will not be surprised if it's one of the more entertaining weekends we've got to this point. That being said, Harrison, let's go ahead and get it rolling. We're going to start with the 2 series that are your favorites Thursday through Saturday. We got baseball starting tonight on Thursday. Let's start, Harrison, with a one down in Oxford, Mississippi. The Ole Miss Rebels taking on the Florida Gators. Ole Miss coming off a sweep of Mizzou. You could argue, though, especially the pitching staff. The pitching staff is looking for a bounce-back weekend. They got absolutely shelled over the weekend in Como. Hunter Elliott was not his typical self. Riley Maddox got absolutely torn up. You still sweep, so they'll be looking to bounce back in that regard. But, Harrison, Florida's looking for their first SEC win of the season. We've also got Liam Peterson back for the Gators. Your thoughts on this weekend, your pick? Beer showers will be going all weekend long. Should be a great weekend for baseball in Oxford. And again, very high level entertaining series for some of the storylines that I mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, first off, am I able to change my pick, Chris?
Might want to change your pick.
I'm honestly serious. Am I able to change my pick? Because
you can do whatever you want. I mean, the picks are publicized, but if you want to go like reply to the graphic that's already out there and say, hey, I've made a last-second decision.
Yeah,
you're more than welcome to do that.
Pregame, audible.
Listen, it hasn't started yet, so technically there's still time. Yeah.
Exactly. It's like your March Madness bracket. You can change up until first tip of the game, right?
Fair enough.
I'm flipping to Florida. A last minute, call to the bullpen. We're flipping.
So you were going Ole Miss. You're now going Gators.
Yeah.
Why?
You played the 2 of the top 3 teams in the country. Yeah, you got swept by both of them. We know how talented this Florida team is in the deep lineup that they have. You get Liam Peterson back, your best pitcher, arguably. You're going on the road, which, yes, in a hostile environment in the SEC, winning on the road is not easy, let alone a series. But if any team is fine going on the road, I think it's Florida. Just the pedigree that Kevin O'Sullivan, as a coach, has instilled in a program that he runs, obviously. And I think just the way that Missouri exposed Ole Miss, I think Florida's going to take advantage of that and just kind of the pedigree that Kevin O'Sullivan is going to approach the game, let alone, how good they are as a whole. I mean, weirdly enough, Ole Miss is out, hitting home runs versus Florida, 49-39. But Florida's average, as much as they've gotten shelled in their first 2 series against Tennessee and then absolutely beat down and dismantled from Georgia at home, their batting average is still 20 points higher than Ole Miss. And on the pitching side, yes, the struggles have been there, but you're facing 2 of the 3 best offenses in the country. And Missouri's is not that great, Ole Miss is not that great, even considering they played in Missouri. It's a 4.69 is Ole Miss's ERA, which ranks 71st in the country. Florida, a 5.22, which is 95th. Obviously not good. I think we could take it more with a grain of salt. I mean, Florida's a much better whip than Ole Miss by 0.1, which I think is bigger than people think. Like a 1.4 and a 1.3, big difference. That's 81st versus 33rd ranked in the country. That's how big of a difference it is. And I think it's a must-win series for Florida. Backs against the wall. We know how talented this Florida team is. Backs against the wall. They don't need to win, Chris. I feel like they have to win. The Gators have to win, and they have all the ability and talent to do so. I think they go in to Swayze. They steal a series on a Sunday rubber match. The duel with Liam Peterson and Hunter Elliott, I think it's going to be unbelievably awesome to watch. If you love a good pitcher's duel, watch that, and you may get some fireworks in the back end. But I think they come out, Swayze headed back to Gainesville with their first SEC win. Weirdly enough to say in weekend 3 of SEC play. But they come back with a series win as well.
Switching the pick, Ole Miss to Florida. I like it. By the way, our guy Jake McKeever, he is going with the Ole Miss Rebels. Harrison, this Florida team reminds me a little bit of last year's LSU team, where the record is ugly early. Granted, LSU wasn't 0-6, but the record is ugly early. But I think you really do have to take a hard look at the competition. You played a Tennessee team that nobody in the country was playing better baseball than the Vols, and you had to go on the road. And you then hosted a Georgia team. No excuse to get swept at home, but give Georgia credit. The way they swung the bats, absolutely
They shouldn't have lost game 1.
Shouldn't have lost game 1. They had it in their clutches. So
this is twice now they've done this in a week in the 9th inning.
Yeah, it's a good point. Yeah, I mean, it makes me nervous in regards to the bullpen. Got to get that figured out. But this Florida team reminds me of last year's LSU team from an early gauntlet, getting off to a slow start. I do think they are going to bounce back. You know, everything tells you from their recent struggles. I mean, they've lost 4 in a row. Hey, go Ole Miss here. When it's so obvious in the SEC, that's typically when it goes the other way. I think Florida finds a way. They get off the schneid. I think this Florida team is too good. The return of Liam Peterson, I agree with you, is going to be huge in this one. I think he will out-duel Hunter Elliott in game 1. Give me Aiden King over Riley Maddox in game 2. I don't think it's a sweep. I'm not calling that, but I love those two matchups Thursday, Friday. I would assume they're probably going to go Billy Barlow on Saturday, move Jake Clemente to the bullpen. That's kind of been the conversation with them because of some of his back stuff and just, you know, shorter outings, if you will. But I do think Florida gets off the schneid. They take 2 or 3. This Gators team is just too good to continue to scuffle the way they have and hold them down. Big one, though, in game 1. You need your Florida. Liam Peterson's got to step up and be that dude. Like, you missed last week's start, whatever. Liam Peterson's got to be that horse for Florida if they are going to turn this thing around and get this thing going. If they're going to be the team that we believe they can be, which is an Omaha caliber team, I still think this Florida team could win the national championship. Like, I think they're that good. I think they're that talented. Liam Peterson's got to be a dude for them. Yeah, Liam Peterson's got to be a dude for them. He's got to step up. He's got to be that horse you can depend on in that game 1 spot. There ain't no team in this conference worth a damn that ain't got a dude in that game 1 spot that you can rely on, maybe except Georgia. But the point stands. Liam Peterson got to step up. I think he will. I think he'll pitch much better. Can they get some length out of him? That's the one thing I know, you know, they're a little bit frustrated with. They want to see Liam Peterson get some more length, go into the 6th inning, go into the 7th inning. So I want to see Liam Peterson be efficient as well. But I do think Florida, they're a hungry bunch. I think you're going to see them play desperate. Scary series because Swayze, tough place to play. But I am going Florida Gators as well. And again, our friend Jake McKeever going Ole Miss. So you're flipping your pick. You're going Florida. I'm going Florida. Jake going with the Rebels. Harrison, let's go down to Alex Box Stadium. The other series getting going on Thursday night. LSU and Mississippi State get set to do battle. Both of these teams, Harrison, are looking to bounce back from a rough weekend last weekend. LSU obviously goes on the road, drops 2 of 3 to Texas. Mississippi State goes on the road and drops 2 of 3 to Oklahoma. And the chatter's already begun, Harrison. The chatter has begun around Chris Lemonis. This feels like a really important series for him. It does. To where if you're gonna kind of jumpstart your season, you definitely have to win at least one game. If you get swept, the chatter's only going to grow louder. I know they feel like their fan base, they feel like they need to take 2 or 3 this weekend to like really get things going and kind of get this thing back on track. Because I don't think this is a bad Mississippi State team. But at some point, you got to win games. You just have to win games. Bottom line. LSU, kind of same situation. They're looking to bounce back. Their fan base, they don't take kindly to losing, even though you lose 2 or 3 to a tough Texas team. They don't care about that. They just see the losing 2 of 3. And I think the fact, too, that was a Texas, the knife cut deep on that one, I think, just from a pride perspective. This is also like a low-key, not even low-key, this is a rivalry. Like, these two sides don't like each other. Heck, I've had Mississippi State fans tell me they think LSU, Mississippi State, one of the best rivalries in all of college baseball. They put it up there. The other really notable thing about this weekend, Harrison, that I was informed of this morning, Mississippi State is throwing Pico Con Friday. They are pitching off this weekend. And I actually love it from the state perspective because Cade Anderson, one of the best Friday night guys in the SEC. Pico Con versus Cade Anderson would have been a great matchup. And Pico Con beat Kyson Witherspoon last week, who I think low-key is the best ace in the conference. Pico Con against Anthony Ianson, a guy who a lot of talent but has been struggling for LSU. I see the strategy, what Chris Lemonis and company are trying to implement. Your thoughts, Harrison, LSU, Mississippi State, and who comes out on top?
I love the matchup. Obviously, it's not to the standard in which Mississippi State wants it to be right now, not being a perennial power in the nation, not being top 25. Obviously, they don't want to have to go to the box. They'd rather LSU come to the dude. I don't care either way. It's going to be an awesome atmosphere, an electric series, I think, going into it. And I think it's an incredible strategy for Mississippi State, pitching off of Pico Con. You also, granted, keep him on a Friday rotation with that. So it's not like you're pitching him off. You're just not adjusting him with the schedule of the Thursday series. But to be honest, statistically, Pico Con's a better pitcher than Cade Anderson. And LSU fans are not going to love to hear that. I mean, he's got a better ERA that's 11 spots ranked higher at a 2.52 versus a 2.65, a better whip at a 0.7 versus a 0.97. That is 50th ranked for Cade Anderson versus 9th ranked for Pico Con. He's got a little bit lower K per 9. It's 1.2. Okay, big difference, right? But that is 40th ranked versus 22th ranked for LSU and Cade Anderson in his favor. But Sierra's, it's a 1.13 versus a 1.08. That's 9th and 7th, which is basically a future predictor of expectation of ERA with ballpark adjustments, playing on the road, things like that. A lot more, I think, wholesome number and statistic to look at for future ERA-wise that takes more into account. And I think that would have been an unbelievable, pitching matchup. We would have gotten seen another great pitching duel. But the strategy for Mississippi State is, you got to win one. We talk about the mindset. Talk about how I've talked with SEC coaches about it. You win the series at home and you don't get swept on the road. You have to. That is think about that. Even if you do that bare minimum, you're probably plus 500 in the SEC at least. And to do that,
at least 500, which is going to get you in the postseason.
Yeah, exactly. But to go to Alex Box and take a game, it's huge. I don't care what team it is. I mean, you could say LSU going to Dish Falk Field and taking a game. That was huge. Obviously not what they expect. They want to win the series, but you don't get swept versus a top 5 team, even though you're a top 5 team. You have to understand and appreciate that more. But I just think the depth for LSU is going to outshine the depth for Mississippi State. Even though Mississippi State, I said it on our recap on Monday, Mississippi State had no business losing that series at Oklahoma. They lost the series. Oklahoma did win it, but I think it was more so Mississippi State lost it just with the implosion of, the errors and walks they had in game 2, being down 7-0 in the third and then being tied 10-10, 11-11, whatever. And they took a lead in the 7th inning and then you end up losing it. They had no business. I mean, the offense did everything they could to carry it on their back, but I mean, I'm not going to say backs against the wall for Chris Lemonis because you're playing a top 10 LSU team on the road. Timing the schedule, I think, does take into effect. Same thing you could say with Florida, playing at Lindsey Nelson against number 1 Tennessee and then playing, hosting, while you have a lot of injuries, a really, really hot Georgia team that proved me wrong, right? And I'm not going to say that, but just you're going in, against one of the hostile environments in one of the most pedigree programs historically. They have the second most national champions. Obviously, I know it's year by year, but I just think the depth of LSU is going to be on full display and going to prove why they're a better team and why they're going to win this series versus Mississippi State and take 2 of 3 in the box.
Harrison, I'll say this, the whole backs against the wall thing. Must win might be aggressive for any of these series, but I will say this. For these teams that have gotten off to a bad start or a less than ideal start, if you're sitting there essentially 2-4 or worse in SEC play, there is definitely a sense of urgency right now. And you can tell that. Like, I don't think I know you're keeping routines at Pico Con, but like, I don't think you make that move unless you're like, hey, we need to win this series this weekend. There is definitely a sense of urgency. And everybody knows, I talk to people down at Florida, like, same thing. Like, because let's retire the phrase, it's early in the season. It's not early in the season. It's not. Like, we're at the halfway point, essentially. We are. I know it's early in conference play, but you only get 10 of these weekends. Harrison, we're going to be a third of the way through after this weekend. So it's not early. So there is a sense of urgency, and I think you'll see that from Mississippi State. I love the pitching off of Pico Con. I think that matchup sets up well. To your point, I am also going with the LSU Tigers. After losing 2 or 3 on the road, I just don't see any way they come home and don't play really good baseball. You want to see a fan base panic? LSU lose this series. You will see a fan base hit the panic button. I mean, if you lose 2 or 3 at the box this weekend. Good news for LSU fans. I don't think it happens. I think it'll be a hard-fought series. I will not be surprised Mississippi State takes a game. But to your point, Harrison, I just think the depth too much. I think that lineup at home so good. I think also, too, some of these youngsters they're depending on, the Schmitz of the world and the Kassan Evans and some of these other guys, I think they're going to be a little bit more comfortable at home at the Alex Box than they were on the road at Dish Falk. Case and Evans, excuse me. Yeah, I think they're going to be much more comfortable at home than they were in Austin, which only makes sense. So
yeah, and it's like they're coming home not after a gut check, but after just a bad taste in their mouth after winning game 1 and then losing game 2 and 3 at Texas. They're coming home with a bad taste in their mouth, but they cannot take Mississippi State lightly. And I know Jay Johnson Ball Club won't. That mindset be instilled, but fans, I think, need to understand that too, because Mississippi State's a very good ball team. I think they're one of the better top unranked teams in the country statistically, offensively. I mean, we've seen what they can do offensively against good pitching. I mean, it's not like they're any slouch in the offensive ranks. They're 26th in ERA. I mean, they've got 30 plus home runs. They're top 25 in OPS. They're top 24 in WRC plus, which is weighted runs created plus, which is 143. That's 43% better than the average team. So it's going to be a hard-fought game, but like I said,
I think it is going to be, for being so early in conference play, I think it's going to be a really highly intense, emotional kind of weekend. I think both fan bases in their own way, a little bit on edge right now. I like, just, right, wrong, or different. I just think the passion of these two fan bases, you could argue it's 1 and 2 or 1A, 1B in the SEC. It'll be a highly intense series. I think this is going to be actually a really, really fun one. But I agree with you again. LSU gets it done. Our guy Jake McKeever also going with the LSU Tigers. All 3 of us taking the Bayou Bengals at home to get it done.
LSU fans, don't be mad. I'm picking LSU.
We're all taking LSU. Harrison, let's go to the series that start on Friday through Sunday, as Harrison says, as God intended. Friday through Sunday, not Thursday through Saturday. Let's start with the one that yours truly is going to be attending. The SEC Unfiltered Tour will take us to Nashville, Tennessee. I cannot wait. This is my first time ever taking in baseball there, at least regular season baseball, or baseball that actually matters. I did stop by there last football season. They were having a scrimmage when I went in town for the football game. But this will be my first time catching an actual game at the Hawk, and I couldn't think of a better series to be there for, Harrison, because we've got Vanderbilt and Arkansas doing battle, 2 teams that are pretty hot, both things considered, especially Arkansas. The way they're swinging it, their lineup, they are absolutely red hot. Obviously, Vandy coming off the series sweep last weekend against Texas A&M, one in which their pitching staff absolutely dominated in that series. 49 strikeouts in a 3-game set. J.D. Thompson and company looking to keep things rolling. Again, Arkansas's bats. It's a matchup of good on good, Harrison. I'm excited to see it. And I'm excited to get a look at both of these teams, both these lineups. One guy in particular I want to see, Gabe Gackle. This is a dude that was a consensus preseason All-American by everybody. Hasn't quite lived up to those standards and expectations. And Harrison, I forgot to mention this to you, folks that I've talked to in baseball circles in the SEC. When I mentioned Gabe Gackle, and we'll see, this is why I want to get a firsthand look. Short righty, flat fastball. That's why they believe he's getting hit around a little bit. So we'll see. We'll see. That's what one coach has told me. Short righty flat fastball, and that will get hit in this league. But again, it all sets up for Gabe Gackle to go out there and shove. Your thoughts, Harrison, on this series and who comes out on top this weekend in Nashville?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a fun series to watch. That's going to be like a sneakier series. Like you said, this kind of slate is. You get a hot Vanderbilt that comes in after sweeping a series versus this unwinding A&M team, which you catch them at a good time, right? I guess that's all we can say right now. They're coming in hot. The bats look great, obviously, which is not something traditionally that Vanderbilt's used to. And talk about the bats being hot. Arkansas, one of the top 3 offenses in the country. You're coming into a team like Vanderbilt that's playing great baseball with a bad taste in your mouth after losing a midweek in a game that you had no business losing against Missouri State. I think they come in with that bad taste and they take care of business. And Arkansas is just too dominant of an offense to be slowed down by Vanderbilt. And that's no disrespect to Vanderbilt's pitching staff. I just think it's more so the bullpen. J.D. Thompson's a stud on the mound. Stud. Even with the inconsistencies that you have seen and that I've seen on the mound for Arkansas, in the bullpen as well as the starting pitching side, I think they go on the road, they buckle some things up. That thing that you talk about, Gabe, is really interesting, which is the kind of the low righty fastball, just height. I think it's the height of his fastball. It is so much flatter because of, for people that don't understand, the descent angle versus coming here as a fastball versus coming here. It's the whole geometry of it. And that means that the ball can stay on plane with the bat. It's like it's changing plane less. So the bat has to match it like over a longer distance. It has more distance to match the plane, if that makes sense. Hopefully it does. Because you're trying to come in here and just hit it at the right time versus you have more time to get on plane, if that's the best way I can explain it. But I think that Vanderbilt is definitely going to give Arkansas a good taste of, how good their pitching is. But Arkansas is fine. They've seen really good pitching. And no one has been able to stop the offense. No one. I just think that they're so offensively powered and dominant. I mean, Chris, weirdly enough, coming to the season, neither one of us would have said that they had a top 3 offense in the country, not the nation, not the SEC, the country, and that their offense has been playing season long by far better than the pitching staff. None of us would have expected that. They have the number 1 offensive, average in the past 7 games. They're 9th average in average this season. 56 home runs, Chris. 56. They're top 3 OPS. They're top 2 in WRC plus, weighted runs created plus, producing 72% more runs than the average college baseball team right now. And they're top 10 in ERA. Vanderbilt's 12th in ERA and 2nd in WHIP. Arkansas is 7th in WHIP. But I think Arkansas is too dominant and playing at too much of a high level, even with their inconsistencies, to lose the series, let alone on the road at the Hawk. Give me the Razorbacks to go in and take 2.
Yeah, I was thinking, Harrison, before we got going, it's so funny. I would have never thought before the season started, I would have been looking at the series and saying, man, I just don't know that Vanderbilt can keep up with this potent Arkansas offense. That's not – I mean, when I looked at this series in the preseason, I thought, man, these are going to be low-scoring games, pitching battles, probably a lot of small ball. But the case is, like you mentioned, I mean, Arkansas, one of the best lineups in the country right now, with the Alloy brothers are doing, Brent Iredale, others in that lineup. I mean, they are just red hot at the plate. I know Vanderbilt was able to pick on a pretty weak A&M lineup at this point, but I do think this is a different beast. I hope they still let me in the Hawk after saying this, but I am taking Arkansas as well. This is going to be a fun series. Like I said, I'm really, really excited to get a firsthand look at both these teams. And I tell you this, Vanderbilt, a team that I wasn't high on coming in the season, admittedly. They take 2 or 3 this weekend. You talk about a statement. I just think Vanderbilt's offensive ceiling, I think, is going to limit them in a weekend like this, where the way the Hogs are swinging it, man, like as good as Vandy's pitching staff is, I just think you got to look at it as like they're going to get theirs, and I just don't know that Vandy can keep up with that. And by the way, Arkansas's got a pretty good staff too, and a pretty good pitching staff. So
yeah, and you talk about just the ceiling for Vanderbilt's offense, I think is a great point because just to give you some comparison stat-wise, 21 home runs this season compared to Arkansas's 56. And I don't think the Hawk is, is not a big ballpark by any means, right? Their average is 283, which is 124th in the country. Arkansas's is 332, which is 9th. OPS, Vanderbilt is 838, which is 127th in the country. Arkansas, 1,050, which is third in the country. Just it's such drastic differences, and it only gets worse the last 7 games. 216 average rank for Vanderbilt's off, or 216 rank for Vanderbilt's average, 180th for their OPS. So not turning the right way, and it's things could get spicy, Chris. It's the SEC playing on the road, but it just feels too dominant on both sides of the ball for Arkansas for me to not pick them.
Yeah, great pitching beats great hitting, but at the same time, I just don't know that Vandy is going to hit enough, to your point. Really good stats there, Harrison. Jake McKeever also, our guy Jake, also taking the Arkansas Razorbacks. So a clean sweep. And again, how many clean sweeps we have, that is what scares the absolute hell out of me. Harrison, let's go to the series taking place in Athens, Georgia this weekend. The Georgia Bulldogs host the Auburn Tigers. And the big question I have is simply this, and I think everybody's got: can anybody stop Georgia's bats? Leading the country in home runs. You know, you lose Charlie Condon, you think there's going to be this drop-off. Nope. They are even better than they were last year, I would argue, offensively. You know, what they did, what they've done in SEC play to this point. I know Kentucky gave them some problems, but the pitching staff being a big story last weekend against Florida, really stepping up. I think Brian Curley in that starting role in Game 2 paid major dividends. And you figure Wes Johnson is the guy to press the right buttons and get the pitching staff figured out. So we'll see if they're able to build off last weekend's momentum and put together some quality starts. Auburn trying to pull the upset. Again, an Auburn team that you and I taught, Harrison, on Monday, they're still not being talked about a ton. Ike Irish is back. We know about Cooper McMurray, you know, Sam Dutton on Fridays, like all, you know, Butch Thompson. It's like people forget that he's taken Auburn to Omaha a few times over the last couple of years. Auburn can gain a lot of attention from people this weekend if they go into Foley Field and take that series. That being said, I am going the Georgia Bulldogs. I just think the way Georgia's swinging it right now, nobody better in the country. It does not matter who you trot out on the mound. They are going to hit you. And I think especially being at home, as they say in Athens, Harrison, feed the trees. I think they're going to feed the trees all weekend. I do think Georgia gets the better of what I think is a really good Auburn team, but going on the road and asking you to beat up on this Georgia team. Let's see. If Georgia's pitching staff, if we don't see them build momentum, and if it gets squirrely, then who knows? But I mean, dude, Georgia's shown the ability to win games 17-10. And I just think offensively, I think that'll carry them yet again. I do think they'll get the better of Auburn this weekend.
The question that you posed of who can stop Georgia's offense is the question around Georgia baseball and maybe around the SEC. And I don't think it's Auburn, because I don't think the pitching staff is dominant enough to do that. Their pitching staff is probably slightly better than Georgia's pitching staff, which is weird to say because Georgia's pitching staff is held up by their bullpen. And I think they did figure some things out on the pitching side, the starting pitching side specifically for Georgia on the road in the SEC with Brian Curley. And I said that they needed to start Brian Curley at some point. They did. I think it gave him a lot of length. It was the right time to do it. It was beyond the right time to do it, but the right situation. And he took advantage of it and did a really good job with it. And I think you're going to continue to see Wes Johnson tighten up the pitching staff and how the pieces work together like a puzzle, right? And then you have the number one offensive ranking WRC plus in OPS in the country in Georgia. Their OPS is almost 1,100. Their WRC plus is 189, which is 89% better than the average baseball team. Auburn's is not that far off. I mean, they're not bad. They're top 50 in OPS, top 40. They're 37th in WRC plus at 136. The average, they're 41st in the country, but just Georgia has proven that no one's been able to slow them down offensively, slow down their offense, even as good as a pitching staff as Florida is. And I think Florida's pitching staff is better still than Auburn's. And Auburn's just not been playing great baseball statistically the last 7 games. I mean, they're average 258, which is 224th in the country. Their OPS is 792, which is 184th in the country. Georgia, they have not slowed down. They really have not. I mean, it's just, I think, going to be so much of a slugfest that Auburn's not going to be able to keep up with, let alone the struggles and concerns, that we've had with Georgia's pitching staff. I don't think that's going to be a worry at all this weekend. I think it'll be maybe a close game early just because Georgia maybe gets in like a 3-4, spot hole. But I just don't think Auburn can keep up, even with, the power bats they have and some young guys have really stepped up with Georgia's 1 through 9 that can absolutely mash the baseball. And there is going to be a lot of baseballs flying out of the park because that's what Georgia likes to do. That's what the fans like to see. The kudzu's going to be fed. The boys up in right field, up at the fraternity houses, are going to be loud, and it's going to be awesome. And I think Georgia's going to definitely take 2 or 3 with an opportunity to sweep.
Jake McKeever also going with the Georgia Bulldogs, clean sweep. We're all going Georgia. I'll say this, Harrison, before we move on, and they're going to call me a Georgia hater. Georgia fans already think I'm a hater, so it is what it is. So I'll just say
they think
this.
I am too, don't worry.
Right, I'll just say this freely. Georgia is that team on a week-in, week-out basis that I think they're going to, at some point, kind of just inexplicably drop a series. Like, it could be this weekend where – because I just think at some point when you have that much liability on the pitching side, like it's going to bite you at some point. And I know they looked really good against Florida. Let's see if they can do it back-to-back weekends. If they can, really good sign. But Georgia's that team that kind of scares me where it's like, can they win games 14-10 every weekend? I mean, are they not at some point going to have a weekend where they don't look like a church league softball team? And I'm not saying – I picked Georgia. I'm not saying it's this weekend, but it will not surprise me if at some point it's like, damn, they lost 2 or 3 to who? You're like, well, I mean, look at the scores. They lost 10-6. I mean, you got some point you got to pitch. Some point your pitchers will have to pick up your hitters, and it will be at that moment that we'll really see this Georgia team. We could see them struggle. But again, I don't think it'll be this weekend, but they do scare me from that standpoint. So, Harrison, let's move on to the series in Como. The Missouri Tigers hosting the Texas Longhorns. Texas's first ever trip to Como as a member of the SEC, of course. Missouri's bats, like I mentioned, have been red hot. They beat up on an Ole Miss staff, Hunter Elliott, Riley Maddox. This is a different beast, though, I think, in Texas. Jared Spencer's obviously going to be looking for a little bit of a rebound start after his start against LSU. But Texas, Harrison, coming in red hot. Your thoughts? We don't have to spend a ton of time on this one because it's a clean sweep yet again in our picks.
Yeah, I think Texas goes and takes care of business with at minimum 2 of 3 with an opportunity to sweep on Sunday. I don't think they slip up as much just because of how much trust and belief I think we've had in this Texas team at this point, even though they're coming off a huge series win, hosting the number 2 LSU Tigers. I think the mindset going in, they're going to take care of business. They're going to continue to learn and to, develop and get better. And I think that's where you might see, Missouri, just scored a couple runs or whatnot. But I just don't think Missouri has any, firepower on both sides to keep up with Texas on both sides of the ball. And I think Texas, if anyone this weekend comes away with a sweep, it's Texas.
Yeah, I'm going to go Texas as well. I'm going to say they sweep. I mean, it's hard for me to say Mizzou is going to win a game, but
I think you get guys that have opportunities to pitch in this series that haven't pitched in the bullpen for Texas.
Yeah, I mean, Mizzou's going to win a game. That offense, they can swing it a little bit, but they cannot pitch at all. So guys like Max Ballou, Jalen Flores, Ryan Galvan, they're going to have a weekend. They're going to have a field day. Jake also going with the Texas Longhorns. Guys, again, we don't have to spend a ton of time on this one. Pretty obvious. We've got the Horns. But I tell you this, Harrison, Como is a weird place. Do not go into this weekend thinking you're just going to throw the gloves out there, roll the balls out, roll the helmets. Hey, we'll just sweep, go home. Many a good SEC team have gone into that place.
Last season.
Got swept. They have inexplicably lost a series up there. Just saying, don't get fat and happy and think Mizzou won't have some fight for you.
The question is, will Texas have more fans than Missouri?
That's a good question. They do travel. I know the Occupy left field folks, they're still going to be there. So Texas fans will travel for that. Harrison, let's go to Tuscaloosa, Alabama and Oklahoma. This one is really, really interesting. Bounce back opportunity for the Crimson Tide at the Joe, obviously after losing 2 or 3 last weekend to Tennessee. We get Zane Adams versus Kyson Witherspoon on Friday, which is going to be pure cinema. And again, I think it's a little bit of a prove it weekend for both sides, because both sides, again, both these teams, I don't want to go into this weekend, are they for real? Stop asking the question. They're both for real. They're both for real, really good. But in regards to, that middle of the pack kind of trying to separate themselves, this is what this weekend I think kind of serves as between the Crimson Tide and the Sooners. So, Harrison, I'll start. This pick scares the hell out of me because I think Oklahoma is a really, really good team. But at the Joe, I fully expect Alabama to bounce back. I think Riley Quick, I think he will have a bounce back start after he got roughed up against a really, really good Tennessee lineup last weekend. This one's going to be fun. This one's going to be wildly competitive. This one's going to come down to a rubber match. But I am going to go with the Alabama Crimson Tide to get it done. Again, the confidence that we all have in Alabama scares the hell out of me. I think this was a coin flip, but I am going Bama here.
I don't think it scares me as much as it scares you, clearly. But, I mean, because I said Mississippi State should have won that series at Oklahoma. And you're going into play a very good Alabama team on the road now and a pissed off Alabama team that should have, they feel like, won the series versus number one Tennessee after winning game one. I don't think it's going to be cinema on the mound. Game one with Zane Adams and Kyson Witherspoon. I think Kyson Witherspoon's, I'm not going to say he struggles, but I mean, how many times we just see him absolutely dominate the stat book and dominate the lineup?
He's a dog. I ain't going to lie.
He does it every single week. And how much is that going to keep up in the SEC? I mean, no disrespect for him. His arsenal is insanely impressive. It's so fun to watch him pitch. But Zane Adams, I think, is just a gutsy, grinding out pitcher, gives you a quality start. But statistically, he's not even in the ballpark with Kyson Witherspoon. And it's hard to say people are. I mean, ERA is twice what Witherspoon's is. It's 181st ranked versus Kyson's 35th ranked, surprisingly. WHIP is almost double. It's 196th for Zane Adams rank versus 22nd rank for Kyson Witherspoon. I don't think it's going to be he's going to get obviously overshadowed. I don't think he has a chance to outpitch him like Pico Con did. But the offense, Alabama's offense is just so dominant. And I think they played very well against Tennessee, even though they lost the series. I mean, offensively ranks, yes, they're not playing statistically great the past 7 games. I mean, you played Tennessee. And, you still sweep A&M on the road. But I just think the Justin LeBron effect is in full force this weekend. He's not afraid to go up and hit against anyone. He did against Liam Doyle. He hit against Marcus Phillips. Vila doesn't scare him. Pitching depth of Arsenal doesn't scare him. Making great plays in the defense doesn't scare him. And I think they're going to really build off and continue to build off that with Rob Vaughn and just the players and pieces they have around him that are going to step up to the occasion against a really good pitching staff, because they just saw a really good pitching staff, Chris. And they gave them a lot of, run for their money. But I just think the offense, I mean, their team's batting over 300. They have almost 50 home runs. They're batting as a team they're 13 points below 1,000 OPS, 11th best in the country. They're WRC plus. They're creating 62 more runs than the average team, 62% more runs than the average team in college baseball. I just think the depth and we've seen Oklahoma score double-digit runs. They did last year against Mississippi State. They have no problem doing that. But I just think in a rubber match, Alabama has a little bit more offense, even though they dropped game one to Kyson Witherspoon, Chris. I think it's going to be a great rubber match. We're going to see gutsy performance. It's going to be, limiting errors, I think, for both teams. More so, Alabama is going to limit it. If they give up a lot of errors and just, walks and just things like that happen, Oklahoma's going to, I think, run away with the series because they steal bases at the second highest rate in the SEC behind Kentucky. And it's not even close second and third, I feel like. They stole 9 bases in game 2, 6 bases in game 3 against Mississippi State. Like, they will steal all over you if you give them the opportunity to. If they can keep Oklahoma's running at bay, I think they definitely win this series. And I have Alabama doing so at the Joe after a bounce back weekend losing to Tennessee last week.
Oklahoma does like to play small ball, to your point. I will say, to your point also, Harrison, you were mentioning Kyson Witherspoon and his stats. And the one thing about this Oklahoma team, I will say, your 2 SEC series have been against South Carolina and Mississippi State, who's scuffling. Like, this is their biggest test easily to this point. Again, this is going to be the one. Both these teams are for real. Let's please stop the conversation of are they for real? These are 2 good ball clubs.
Yeah.
But it's a prove it weekend for both sides where it's like, okay, you've played, look at Alabama, right? They swept Texas A&M. They lost 2 or 3 to Tennessee. This is kind of a who are you really type of weekend. Like, you're not elite level, but are you really, really good? Or are you just really good? Or are you really good? Or are you just good?
Which is like 6th, 7th.
So to your point, it's like this weekend's like, are you top of tier 2 or are you kind of fringe tier 2? That's what this kind of weekend is to me. Both good ball clubs, but I think both still feel like, at least I still feel like, both have a lot to prove. Prove it weekend in Tuscaloosa.
Yeah, and I have questions in the Saturday role for Oklahoma with Cameron Johnson, who's just struggled, it feels like, all season. I mean, he's got a 5.6 ERA. I mean, a 1-7 whip. I mean, he's just struggled on the mound. And that's the game that Alabama has to win if they want to win this series. They have to win that because statistically, I don't think they're going to beat Kaiser Weatherspoon unless they get to the bullpen and they keep it like a 1-1, like a 2-run, difference in the game and, can get to the bullpen and have a clutch hit. But you have to win game 2 if it's Cameron Johnson. But if you're Skip Johnson in Oklahoma, do you keep him that Saturday role or what happens with that? Malachi Witherspoon's in the Sunday role. He's been pitching well. He's been pitching very good. He's obviously getting overshadowed by his brother, but it's interesting to see that Saturday role and what they do in that rotation and if Alabama can take advantage of it.
Jake McKeever also going Alabama. So again, it's a clean sweep from us, all three of us picking the Crimson Tide. Haberson, let's go to Founders Park in Columbia, South Carolina. The Gamecocks take on the Tennessee Volunteers, and it's probably going to be a warm weekend. The wind always seems to be blowing out at that park. Tennessee is licking their chops. This is a South Carolina staff that gave up double-digit runs. And granted, Arkansas's lineup, much better than we expected, but gave up double-digit runs to Arkansas all 3 games. Now here comes Tennessee, right? So you're on a 4-game losing streak, I believe it is. I believe it's a 4-game losing streak, yes. And now you've got Tennessee coming to town. I don't know where the answers come for South Carolina staff. I mean, this is one, Harrison. I know, again, you don't like to predict sweeps. If I'm Tennessee, I'm like, it's sweep or bust for us. Like, we should sweep this weekend. We are just so much better than this team. Granted, you take nothing for granted. Like, I'm not saying if you take 2 or 3, you had a bad weekend, but it will be an upset. Like, I think it'll be a pretty sizable upset if South Carolina is to even take a game this weekend. So I'm going to go with the Tennessee Volunteers. I just, again, all the Gamecocks have right now is Ethan Petrie. There's nobody to protect him. Tennessee's pitching staff will feast on that. And I think offensively, they're going to do what everybody else has done against the Gamecocks, which is hit some more. The ball is going to be flying out of Founders. Give me the Vols. Give me the Vols to sweep.
I'm going to keep it short and sweet, too, just because I think even though South Carolina is going to have a great crowd for this series because it's Tennessee, I think Tennessee.
Harrison, not to cut you off. Do you think South Carolina's crowd is going to be there to watch South Carolina or more so to get a look at Tennessee?
Both. I think it'd be even. But you're going to have a lot of Tennessee fans that are there that travel because it should be a great weekend for baseball. And we know how great of a crowd Founders Park draws. I mean, personally, we know that. But South Carolina's offense is still above average in the nation. I don't think you can take that, for granted because they're producing 20 more runs than the average team in college baseball. It's just you're going up against a beast that's producing 65% more runs than any other team in baseball, 4th best in the country, 2nd best OPS in the country, almost 1,100. It's top 20 average, over 320 they're batting. And they have 59 home runs, Chris. South Carolina's 23. You want to talk about Lindsey Nelson being a bomb box, all this chatter about Tennessee only hits in a small ballpark. You're going to see it this weekend because Founders Park is not a small ballpark by any means, and they are going to be launching baseballs out up in the upper deck in left field and into the road in right field. You're going to see it this weekend. The firepower is just too much elite high level, too much depth in the lineup, too much depth in the bench, too much firepower in the mound, too much deep arsenals and firepower in the bullpen, and options, a luxury of riches, Chris. We're going to see it on full display this weekend, even though it's on the road. And I don't predict sweeps, but Tennessee needs to be and should, and I believe is going to be going into Sunday. Yes, you take it one game at a time because that's Tony Vitello and that's any coach. You win Friday, then you win Saturday, then you win Saturday. They're expecting to be in a Sunday spot where we are expecting to sweep. They're going to go in this weekend expecting to sweep. And South Carolina, I think taking 1 would be big for South Carolina. I really do. It's just like you said, the lack of protection around Ethan Petrie, the question marks on the pitching side. You have Dylan SECU concussion protocol still. You assume he's going to start, but take 1 from Tennessee. I think it would be a win for a weekend for South Carolina, as much as that hurts to say for me and fans. But you're facing the best team in the nation that is playing very, very, very high level baseball right now.
Yeah, they're just on a completely different level than you are.
Yeah.
Weekend rotation, by the way, we've got it, Harrison, for the Gamecocks. They are going to go Jake McCoy on Friday, Jarvis Evans Jr. on Saturday, and Sunday TBA. So that would tell me Dylan SQ probably doesn't go. Maybe that's what the Sunday TBA
Maybe he
is.
clears by tomorrow. I don't know.
Maybe so, but they
it has to be
obviously
7 days.
they have booted Brandon Stone from the weekend rotation, which I think was a smart move. I think the kid did his best, but 2 starts and he got shelled in both. So, and you certainly don't want to roll him back out there. Balls are going to hit all weekend again, Harrison. I just think these are 2 programs on 2 completely different ends of the spectrum. Anything can happen in the SEC, but that's why I said, Harrison, to your point, taking one would be massive, and it would be a massive upset in my opinion. So all 3 of us, myself, Harrison, Jake McKeever, going with the Tennessee Volunteers. Finally, let's go to Bluebell Park in College Station, Harrison. The Texas A&M Aggies hosting the Kentucky Wildcats. And I'm going to say it. It's now or never for Texas A&M. 0-6 in SEC play, one of the 3 that are defeated in conference play. For A&M, there's good news. You've got Caden Sorrell's return this weekend. In what capacity is he involved? We'll see. But he is back, which maybe will be a spark for an offense that is just looking for answers right now. Gavin Cash has been dealing with some back spasms. He did not play on Tuesday. I think he's going to go this weekend. But the Sorrell return, Harrison, is a really, really big piece here. Here's the thing. For an A&M squad looking to get off the schneid, you've got a team in Kentucky you're more talented than, but I think this could be a really difficult weekend from the standpoint. Kentucky's going to apply pressure to you all weekend. They're going to bunt. They're going to steal. They're going to small ball. They're going to hit and run. They're going to do everything to put the pressure on you. And for an A&M squad feeling pressure as is internally, that scares me a bit. Your thoughts on this weekend at Bluebell? Does Texas A&M finally get off the schneid, or is it more struggles for the Aggies?
Chris, this is a desperation series for Texas A&M. You're 0-6 in the SEC, like you said, in which no one expected them to have the worst record in the Southeastern Conference this season after being
a losing record. I think they're right at 500 now. I think they're 12-12 maybe. They were 11-12 until last week, and they did win the midweek. So sitting at 500, to your point.
And you haven't even played the top 5 teams in the SEC as we stand right now. You come back home after I thought, a business trip for the boys changes, flips something, gets a spark going. And we saw with Jay Slavite, he's been playing, I think, a lot better baseball, but not, his standard. But you do get Caden Sorrell back. You're just going to be playing a scrappy Kentucky team that is not the same as last year's team, but just super pesky and just annoying. And, they do all the little things right. They don't commit errors. They play clean defense traditionally. They bunt. They play small ball. They're able to hit it out of the yard a little bit too. But they swipe bags more than anyone in the SEC by far. And it's tough to see and to stop that when they are so successful and do it at such a high level consistently, because that's just their forte. That's how they play baseball. And their pitching staff, I think, is as a whole is a little bit worse than A&M's. We talk about if A&M could score 5 runs a game, their record, they'd probably have 5 more wins. I'd give them at least 2 conference wins. But just the average, it's twice as bad. Kentucky's batting 288 as a team, and A&M is batting 257. That's 110th ranked and 224th ranked in the country, respectively. And then OPS, they're 168th, Chris, Texas A&M at 799. Unbelievable to think of at this point. And then Kentucky, 885, which is 70th in the country. I talk about WRC plus being the average, being 100 for weighted runs created plus. A&M is the average. Thinking about that as the SEC whole gives you a good sense of what average in the country is 100. A&M is 100, which is 180th ranked. Kentucky, just because of how they play baseball and stealing bases, they're, instead of these singles and whatnot, they're getting doubles, then RBI singles because they're, base hits in the outfield. 125th WRC plus, that's 60th ranked. It's as much as a back's against the wall as any team in the SEC right now, Chris, it's A&M, especially playing Kentucky, a bottom tier right now, how they're playing and, where the standings are right now, bottom tier 3 SEC team. They can't lose this series, Chris. They can't. From a player, coach, fan base standpoint, donor standpoint. But I just think Kentucky just plays too clean of defense and swipes too many bags. That puts pressure on A&M constantly throughout the series. And yes, they escaped, these struggles of against how good this A&M starting pitching staff is. I think they sneak and steal a series at Bluebell and just continue to see the struggles in A&M, unfortunately.
And I think it's a fair pick, Harrison. Like, until we see it from the Aggies,
Yeah.
you almost have to go the other way. Our guy, Jake McKeever, by the way, also going Kentucky.
And I wanted to pick A&M, and I picked A&M last week on the road. I wanted to pick Vanderbilt. I really did. This has to be the weekend. Has to, right? I just can't do it again this week. And I just think the clean defense, the pressure of stolen bases, and getting guys in running the score position for Kentucky is going to prove to be beneficial for them and allow them to have just enough offense later in the game that they pull up the series win on the road, which is tough. I talk about how tough it is to pick a series on the road. I think it happens here.
To your point, Harrison, the scary thing for A&M is they haven't even gotten into like the real teeth of their schedule.
We talk about it. Yeah,
the back half is. I mean, the back half is brutal. I mean, this was supposed to be the part of the schedule they were kind of picking on.
Yeah.
I'll say this. This weekend is going to tell me everything I need to know about Michael Early's Texas A&M Aggies. This should be a team that comes out hair on fire, desperation mode. Talk about a sense of urgency. I mean, A&M should be coming out like this is the last baseball they will ever play level of intensity. If we don't see that from them, to hell with the wins and losses. If we don't see that level of intensity, that is a way bigger problem than what the record says.
I don't disagree.
You talk about Harrison must win. This is as must win gets for a regular season series. 0-6 in conference play. If you lose this series to Kentucky, you are staring not making the postseason. I'll tell you this. If you lose this series to Kentucky, you're not making the postseason. I'll go that far. There is no coming back from losing this weekend series. There's no
with the schedule they have, there's no coming back.
With the schedule they have down the road, there's no hot streak incoming. There's no late season run. If you can't protect your home field against the Kentucky Wildcats, all due respect, and if you can't take 2 or 3 against them, forget the postseason dreams. And I'll take it a step further. Michael Early should be fired by Monday. I know it won't happen because we don't see midseason changes in college baseball, but this is the weekend. This is the weekend that's going to tell me everything I need to know about Michael Early's Texas A&M program. And if he's the guy to lead them, because if you don't come out hair on fire, take this series, protect the home field, backs against the wall, like desperation mode in College Station. If you can't do it this weekend, you're cooked. Like, you are done. Forget about the postseason. You have to have this. That being said, I am going Texas A&M because I think at some point, even if the lineup is trash again, the starting rotation is too good. They're going to pitch themselves to a series win. They're going to at some point, I want to believe, talent, creme de la creme. The cream rises to the top. A&M is vastly more talented than Kentucky. So even if Michael Early is totally incompetent, I want to believe that with the talent they have, maybe the Caden Sorrell return is a spark for them. I want to believe that talent is going to rise to the top. They are going to finally put it together. But I'm telling you, Harrison, if they do not, if you drop this weekend series, you can kiss your postseason hopes goodbye, and Michael Early can probably forget ever being a head coach ever again because he ain't going to get another opportunity after this. Not after taking arguably the best roster in college baseball, or at least one of the best, and putting out the product that he has. So this is a big series across the board for everybody involved with Texas A&M baseball, top to bottom, not just for this year's team, but for your future outlook, for anything else you want to do down the road.
So much of it, Chris, falls on Mike Early, and I think it's unfair in a sense because he's not the one playing the game, Chris. I get he's making decisions as the managerial, person in charge, but at some point the players need to be held more accountable than Michael Early. You can put whatever lineup out there you want, but if the guys aren't producing, and we've seen the pitching staff is top 7 ERA in the country at 3.31, top 7. Their whip's a 1.22, which is 13th in the country. At some point, even if the offense picks it up 25%, a boost of some sort, they are going to win baseball games. And they have the talent in the offense to do so. Maybe, like you said, him coming back is a spark plug. But if I'm Texas A&M, I'm in the locker room, we got to do a bat ritual, some type of voodoo, get something going. You got to do a circle, a prayer circle, do something that's only talked about and only seen and only people in the clubhouse know. It could be some sort of, bat, magic. Get some I don't even know. You got to do something. You got to take the curse off the bats. You got to do something, and you got to go there and just play with your hair on fire, because I think there is. And I mean, it's crazy to think that David Pierce, who was not a head coach beginning of the season, has won a conference game faster than Michael Early at Texas A&M. Just for like a perspective thing, not against Michael Early or anything, but I feel and I hate for him in this situation, being a first-year head coach and trying to prove himself. But at the end of the day, like I said, I don't think you can I think there's too much pressure, not pressure, but too much blame on Michael Early, because he's not the one out there playing. The guys on the field are the ones playing. So
I will say in closing too, Harrison, you picked Kentucky. Jake McKeever's going Kentucky. I am going Texas A&M for some.
I want to win the pick'em, Chris.
Yeah, for some unknown reason. I think A&M and Florida get off the schneid this weekend. But I will say, from the Kentucky perspective, man, we're playing with house money, baby. We're playing against a team who they're going to probably be as tight as anybody. We can go ahead and play loose. Like, whatever.
Yeah, you're going to play.
We weren't expected to win this series in the preseason. What do we have to lose? I mean, we weren't ever number one. Like, Kentucky can, and that's what I'm saying. The small ball, the hit and run, the steals, that scares me, because you already got an A&M team feeling internal pressure. Then you're putting that pressure on them. And I'll tell you this, Harrison, finally, game 1 for A&M is massive.
They have to set the tone.
They need something to feel good about. You lose again? I don't know, man. Can you recover? Can you bounce back?
Like I said,
we haven't seen it to this point.
The Aggies in the locker room, they need to do something. They need to all switch lockers, go jump in the river, do something. Anything.
Do a rain dance. I don't know. Maybe they need a rain out.
I mean, call Crash Davis.
Call Crash Davis and get a rain out. Harrison, that being said, man, picks are in the books, man. Really appreciate it. That was a lot of fun. Let's go through these really quickly. A couple of comments. Texas Rock says Early should have stuck with Schloss. I think a lot of folks down in College Station feel that way. David Speak says that back-to-back losses to ETSU and Bama already happened. Watch Vitello interview after the Bama loss. No mercy for anyone now.
Texas rocks.
Because Kentucky sweeps. Again, if Kentucky sweeps, I really fear for what A&M is, College Station is going to be like. So Chinook says Georgia is Moneyball. Lose the Condon, Giambi home runs and only increase that the next year with more guys. It does seem that way.
Chris, no, to mention that, because it reminds me, updated Golden Spikes odds have come out. And Ryland Zaborowski
he's not even on there.
Nowhere
right?
to be found. At this point,
it just goes to show that non-college baseball people are putting those together.
Oh yeah, I mean, even put it at plus 10,000, everyone would hammer it. I'd hammer it.
Yeah. David Speaks. Harrison says Georgia Tech's got a big tilt this weekend.
Big series.
Got Clemson, right?
Big series at McNeese Ballpark. I mean, you're a top 25 team now. You're ranked 25th, and I think they're going to go up, especially if you win this series. And now we're turning it into an ACC show. Shout out, it just means less ACC. But if you take 2 or 3 versus a top 10, I know at least Clemson, you're going to be taken really seriously, and they're going to shoot up that rank. I mean, you got Alex Hernandez, who is one of the best freshmen in the country, playing 6 of the 9 positions and playing at the elite level that he's playing at. You got Mason Patel on the mound as a starter and reliever, who is one of the best pitchers in the country, let alone the ACC. And I mean, the talent up and down the board is unbelievable. Danny Hall, this might be his best, unexpectedly best constructed team. Matt Taylor, I think maybe one of the best pitching coaches in the ACC for sure. And what he's able to do with the program there. Unfortunately, not going to be on the call as of right now. Unfortunately, I really wish I was going to be on the call for this, but cards didn't get handed out from the dealer that way to me. So I'm going to be watching this. It's going to be an exciting series. So if you like ACC baseball, it should be fun.
If you like college baseball in general, going to be a great weekend.
College baseball.
I like this comment. She says Florida's clearly just lulling us all to sleep so we can act surprised to see them in Omaha. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I mean, hey, death taxes and Kevin O'Sullivan getting the Gators to Omaha. I mean, that's what happens. So we'll take 1 or 2 more. Let's see. You got one?
Vandy doesn't allow seeds in the field because they have a turf field. Chris, your mission, should you choose to accept via?
No, I won't spit the seeds on the field. I'll have a cup with me. We'll carry
Chris,
the cup.
I'm continuing to preach that baseball fields
Weird to not allow seeds. That's strange.
It's because you have to clean up and vacuum. But baseball fields between the lines, Chris, I have nothing but utter confidence in. I don't even know what the words to put together, but it absolutely just has to be dirt and grass between the lines. Clemson put that new backdrop around with the new Clemson script behind. Looks cool. But they have all the turf and foul territory. I'm fine with that. Detroit Tigers took out their batting, their walk-up dirt path to the box. That I was a little annoyed with that. I think that's super traditional, old school. But between the white lines, Chris, it has to be dirt and grass. Has to.
I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm not a huge turf guy.
And you can split seeds then.
Yeah,
but it's the game of baseball, Chris. Dirt and grass.
I know.
Get the jerseys dirty.
It's an outdoor game, man. Let's play it as such. No turf needed.
Touch grass, Chris. Go touch grass.
I am excited to get a look at the Hawk and touch turf this weekend.
Touch turf.
Is that Jonah Hill or Harrison fan? There you go. Yeah.
Moneyball,
baby. Moneyball. Last one.
I'm going to point to point, Pete, if you don't check your notes.
Yeah. Patrick says UGA pitching is still complete ass. We'll find out this weekend.
You're going to learn today, Patrick.
Yeah, big prove it weekend for the Dogs. Harrison, really good stuff, man. We've got an electric weekend of baseball. Maybe actually, Tennessee's smaller ballpark might actually help A&M.
Next weekend.
Oh, next weekend. Good.
They got to get there first, Chris.
You better get it rolling this weekend, because if you don't, what's on the other side of that? It's going to be difficult no matter what happens, but sheesh. On that note, guys, again, appreciate you all tuning in. Make sure tomorrow night you tune in. We will be live for Friday Night Spikes. Once again, we will keep you updated on times because, of course, I'll be in Nashville, but it will be an electric show, electric weekend as it always is. And, again, we can't say thank you enough. Really good show. Another one in the books. Weekend number 3 of conference play is officially upon us.
And MLB opening day.
And MLB opening day.
How about the Braves, baby? How about the Bravos?
Go Bravos.
We need to bring this hat back, Chris, and that one you're wearing. I love that one.
Yeah, I do agree. I haven't worn this. I haven't pulled this one out in quite a while, so I was like, why not? I think this was like the spring training cap from like 5 years ago. So, yeah, got this a while ago. But either way, guys, again, the Windup will return on Monday, of course, Mondays and Thursdays at noon Eastern. Friday Night Spikes tomorrow night around, I would say, 9 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Central. I will be on Central time, so we will figure out a time that works for everyone. But it's going to be electric, a lot of fun. Again, we cannot say thank you enough. We are having an absolute blast doing this, and we just appreciate you all tuning in each and every single day. Your banter, your discussion, it fuels us. We appreciate it greatly. Again, as always, guys, make sure you like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Check us out via podcast where you get your podcast. You can also find us across all social media platforms, as well as our website, secunfiltered.com. For Harrison Fant, I'm Chris Phillips. Appreciate each and every single one of you tuning in. This is The Windup, SEC Unfiltered's bi-weekly college baseball show and the best college baseball show on the internet. We appreciate you all. Have a great rest of your day. Enjoy March Madness. Enjoy MLB opening day. Enjoy the SEC baseball weekend. And we will see you all tomorrow night on Friday Night Spikes.